blind date that brought us together. I was working at a dairy and poultry farm, and a fellow that I worked with, he said, you ought to call this girl and give her a call, maybe you and her could go out, and that's how it started out.
It had to have been probably God-given, because otherwise we probably wouldn't have met.
Probably not.
Probably not.
Well, I really didn't even know Les, but when we went to high school, we rode the same bus, and we got acquainted that way. Les came to church once in a while, but not often then. After Les graduated, I still had a year in high school, but he went to the service. He was in the Army. He was in there for 2 years.
The Army took me in the day that I graduated.
From then on, we just wrote back and two, letters. And
We met through a friend of mine. They lived over by Ben's parents. And I was over there seeing him a lot. And I met her through his sister. He had a sister there, and she come up and see her a lot. So that's more or less how that was.
Actually, before I really met him, I would walk to school past the house and he'd whistle out the window. So I was standing in the kitchen, he was in the kitchen, he was on one side of the room, I was on the other side of the room, and I was shy then, so I was always looking down, and I'd look up at him, and I'd look down, and I'd look up at him, and every time he looked at me, I'd look down. But I don't know, I said one day I'm going to marry him, and I didn't even know him.
our pastor, and that was Reverend Hawes, that was the one that married us. He went calling on Thursday afternoons. That's when he would do his calling, him and his wife, and then be here for prayer meeting. And so he had went to Les's home. And while he was there at the home, he said, Les, he said, I think there's somebody over at the church that would like to be seeing you. And of course, that was me, I suppose. So whenever he came that Sunday, he asked me to take me home, which that was a real thrill for me, you know.
That's funny, because he worked early mornings all day at this farm, so he'd come to my house, which was just a few miles up the road from that farm, eat supper, and then promptly fall asleep most of the time. We did go on a couple of...
There's other things we done. I didn't sleep all the time.
He took me out to eat a couple times, and we went on a couple of movies.
We went to some drive-in movies. Back then they had drive-in movies, you know.
First date was a double date with two of our friends when we went around to the other school up here, and they had a wiener roast. And so we went with them. They asked us to go with them, so we did. We went to a lot of revivals and a lot of things that were happening around the church, programs in the evenings and at other people's homes and so forth.
Back in our time, it seemed like it was altogether different. There wasn't much to go to. When I was growing up, going to a show was a sin. Couldn't go swimming because back in that day, it wasn't, you wasn't allowed to swim, and dancing was a no-no too. You know, things are different now, and I'm not judging you because you do that today, but that was the things that was back in our day.
At that time, she wasn't allowed to go in the place with me in a car by herself.
For the first,
Yeah.
almost the first 6 or 8 months. But we didn't have a whole lot of money, so he liked to fish. We went fishing. We went to movies. And today you call it 2 for 1, but you paid one price and you started usually around 7 and ended up out at 11. So, and drive up, group their stands, and just spending time at the house.
Every Sunday afternoon, we would go out and eat together and then come back for church.
A lot of times
that
we'd
night.
go down to Wheeling, West Virginia. We had a restaurant there that we stop
Like
and eat.
real well.
Almost 33.
Almost 33, it'd be 33. Our first date was June the 10th, so it'll be 33 years come June the 10th.
We've been married on May the 9th of 16 for 68 years.
We've been married going
Nah.
51 years.
Yeah. You know how you hear us say like too long, but not long enough.
When you first get together, it's all exciting and rosy, and the longer you.
And everything you think's gotta be perfect. It's just like I don't know whether you will understand this or not, I do in my head. It's like the difference between a banty rooster and a hound dog. When you're first new, you know that banty rooster, he's all strutting around and trying to make everything perfect and crowing, and what I do. But as years go by and you get more comfortable with each other and everything, it's just like an old hound dog laying at your feet and everything's nice and calm.
Well, I don't know if that's true because he was like the old hound dog. And from the woman's point of view, I guess it was, the first meal that I cooked him, the first pie that I tried to bake for him would break the cement when you threw it out because I was so worried about getting it right that it didn't turn out right. And I guess the longer you live with each other, you get comfortable,
Quit
it
worrying.
you quit worrying and just be yourself.
Well, I know one thing, it has changed a lot since we've got our family, your mom, and it's been a marvelous experience for me, and I'm sure for her too, to have the family that we have raised and enjoyed and been able to serve God during all that time. It's been wonderful.
Well, when we got married, we were one. And when we went in our first home, we were one. You didn't depend on mom and dad. We had to make out things on our own. And I had to do the cooking for him, and he had to go to work and make the money for me. And having our first child was a real pleasure to know that was our baby. And then all the other children, it just seemed like there was a bond of love that grew closer and closer together.
Well, I think in the beginning, let's be honest, it's a lot of hormone driven. As time goes on, it just gets to be a deeper type of love. When you go through life and things happen, you find out what's important, and it's just deeper. It's not a surface type thing. It's not all fun and games. I mean, marriage is hard, and there's going to be some rough times. But if you love each other, you just persevere.
Another thing, when there was problems, I know there are different things that happen with Les's work, and he'd get discouraged, and I'd encourage him and try to help him. We're here together, and we'll make it, and with God's help, with prayer, and it did.
As couples, my advice would be to talk to each other. If he had one thing to pick on me about, is because at home, everywhere I don't talk. I'm a quiet person. But I don't mean just to talk. I mean.
No, it's a different kind of talk. Dorothy is quiet. Most people know that. And a lot of times at home, she don't have too much to say during the day. But I think what she's trying to say here is talk about your finances. Talk about what you want to do. I know some couples, even our age, I'll ask them, well, what'd your wife say about that? I don't know, I never talked to them about it. How do you plan your finances? I don't know, I just spend my money and she spends hers. You gotta do together, things together, talk about what you're doing. Doherty and I is probably different than most young people, different than most older people. We have no cell phone, we have no computer, we don't do anything like that. We enjoy the simple things in life. Even though, like I said in the other question, you can be comfortable like a hound dog, don't ever take your marriage or your love for granted. Don't ever do that.
One of the things, if you're going to go dating, you need to know a little bit about the person that you maybe are going to date, maybe to make sure of how they stand,
What they believe in,
what they believe,
and if God is ahead of their
their positiveness. I think negativeness can be a bad thing, you know, and make sure that their thoughts and your thoughts are pretty much the same.
So we have to listen to the other person too and know where we're going, what's happening.
Well, you want to talk over the things. You don't keep things a secret from each other, as another thing. And let them know your feelings, each one, and then that will help a person to decide whether you belong together or not.
Before you get married, make sure you got God with you.
Yeah, make sure that God's part of the mix, because you're going to go through hard times, and I always say I'd rather go through it with God than go through it without Him. And I'm talking to the girls now. Set standards for yourself. Expect certain things of yourself, and expect to be respected, and if he doesn't, kick him to the curb.
I'll say something for the guys. If your wife don't like something, you know, you might do something wrong, you know. Always tell her you're sorry, even if you mean it or not.
Just don't rush into anything. Take your time. When you get married, it's a real commitment, so make sure you want to be with that person.